Today, I want to show some love to players that I feel like aren't getting enough attention for how good they've been this season, guys that are having really underrated seasons. Now, I do want to clarify what I mean by not getting enough attention. I'm talking like by the national media and league-wide, because the fan bases of the teams the players play on we're going to talk about today, I'm sure they realize how important these players are and how impactful they've been this season. Before we get started, I do want to say if you're new here, please be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want NHL content just like this all season long. I set a goal to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2023, so every subscription counts. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the one and only goaltender we're going to talk about today, and that is Karel Vejmelka of the Arizona Coyotes. The difference from last season to this season for Vejmelka has been night and day. Last year had just 13 wins in 52 games, a sub 900 save percentage, and the only two goaltenders in the league last season with a goal saved above expected worse than Vejmelka were Kevin Lankinen and Filip Hronek. This season, Vejmelka has done a complete 180. He has a 906 save percentage, which doesn't jump off the sheet at you, but playing on a team like the Arizona Coyotes, getting the kind of workload that Vejmelka has gotten this season, that's not a bad number. He's already up to 11 wins, which is just 2 wins away from tying his win total of all of last season. And the stat that is most impressive to me, Karel Vejmelka is currently top 10 in the NHL in goals saved above expected, going from one of the worst goaltenders in the league in that category last season to one of the best this season. That is a huge turnaround. Vejmelka has been a massive reason why the Arizona Coyotes have not been as bad this season as everybody expected them to be. He's accounted for 11 of the team's 13 wins. Look out, because Arizona may have to get rid of this guy around the trade deadline because he's not doing them any favors in their quest for Connor Bedard. The next player that I want to talk about is Nugent-Hopkins of the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, when you think about the Oilers and when the media covers the Edmonton Oilers, so much of the talk and the focus is on Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, rightfully so, of course. But let's not forget about Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is having an unbelievable season, the best of his career by far, already up to 46 points in 39 games, on pace to shatter his career highs across the board, just 4 points back of his point total that he had last season already. He's been unbelievable on the power play, really giving the Edmonton Oilers some much needed secondary scoring, especially with Evander Kane out of the lineup. This is a guy that on the season has more points than the likes of Austin Matthews, Kirill Kaprizov, Elias Pettersson, Sidney Crosby, Artemi Panarin, and it feels like no one talks about him. Now, I'm not saying Nuge is as good as or on the same level of any of those guys I just mentioned, because he's not, but he's having a really productive season, and I feel like he deserves some love. Moving on now, next up we have defenseman Filip Hronek of the Detroit Red Wings. Now, this is a guy that heading into this season, I wasn't even sure if he was going to be a part of the Red Wings' long-term plans. Not really a guy who I envisioned being a mainstay on the Red Wings blue line in their top 4 for the next 5 years or so, but man, this season has he ever taken strides and became everything that the Red Wings have really needed on their blue line. He's always been kind of labeled as an offensive defenseman, but wasn't really good enough offensively to mask his defensive deficiencies. However, this season, he's having the best offensive start to a year in his career. He's up to 26 points in 35 games. That is top 20 in points by a defenseman in the league. Obviously, Hronek still has a lot of room to improve on the defensive side of things, but he has been a lot better defensively this season than he has been in years past, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that he's played on a pairing with a guy like Olli Maatta basically all season long, and Olli Maatta has been great defensively for the Red Wings this year. So I do feel like Maatta deserves a lot of credit for the resurgence we've seen in Hronek's game this season, but I also do feel like we have to give credit where credit is due to Filip Hronek. He has definitely been a massive bright spot for the Red Wings this season, and like I said, he's gone from a guy who I didn't really envision as somebody who would be a part of the Red Wings long-term future to now, where I feel like if Filip Hronek continues to play this way and Moritz Seider continues to develop and get better, I feel like the Red Wings top 4 on the right side is set for a long time. Next up, we have Dylan Cozens of the Buffalo Sabres, who is kind of the reason I'm making this video. He is currently one of the top 5 U23 scorers in the National Hockey League. He's in that top 5 with the likes of Jack Hughes, Rasmus Dahlin, Tim Stützle, and Andrei Svechnikov. Dylan Cozens has quietly been one of the league's biggest breakout stars so far this season, 35 points in 36 games. He had 38 points all of last season in 79 games, so just 3 points back from tying his total of last season. And although the Buffalo Sabres have one of the league's best power plays that features Dylan Cozens on that power play, 22 of his 35 points have came at 5-on-5, which is a really respectable number. I feel like with the Buffalo Sabres this season, it's sort of the same deal as what I just said about the Edmonton Oilers, where so much of the media attention goes to Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, and with the monstrous season that Tage Thompson is having, he obviously is in the headlines. It seems like every other day he's doing something crazy, but that has kind of left a lot of the other Buffalo Sabres forwards in the shadows this season, like Dylan Cozens, and even somebody like Jeff Skinner, who I think is having a really underrated season, and also even Alex Tuch. Buffalo is a really fun offensive team with a lot of weapons. Moving along now, next up, the player I want to talk about is Andrei Kuzmenko of the Vancouver Canucks. It feels like everything that's been said about the Vancouver Canucks this season has been negative. Every time they're in the spotlight, it's usually not for a good reason. You know, the whole JT Miller fiasco, which has seemingly been going on all season long and is just never ending, that kind of makes you forget that there is positives in regards to the Vancouver Canucks, like Elias Pettersson, who's been a beast this year. I've covered him a couple of times in videos recently, and of course Andrei Kuzmenko, who I wanted to talk about today. He's just been an amazing addition for the Vancouver Canucks. 32 points in 36 games for a guy who has a cap hit this season of just $950K. That is unbelievable value. You never really know what to expect when NHL teams bring guys over from the KHL who are in their mid-20s and were really good players over there. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. When players like Kuzmenko are brought over and signed, the dialogue always seems to be, is this going to be another Vadim Shipachev situation, another Nikita Gusev, or is it going to be, you know, another Artemi Panarin situation? And I feel like this one is obviously somewhere in the middle, but the Vancouver Canucks should definitely be more than happy with how Kuzmenko has fared so far in North America, and I'm really interested to see what happens with Kuzmenko because he is on just a one-year deal, and with us getting closer and closer to the trade deadline, and the Vancouver Canucks right now not being a legit threat to take over one of those wildcard spots, it kind of makes you think, could they shop Kuzmenko? I feel like this is a guy that would have some value for contending teams, especially considering his cap hit is just $950K, and basically any team in the league could make that work. Next up, we have defenseman Josh Morrissey of the Winnipeg Jets, or should I say Josh Norrisy, because at this point in the season, he is a legit Norris Trophy candidate. The only defenseman in the NHL right now with more points than Josh Morrissey is Erik Karlsson, who's obviously been on another level this year. Morrissey's 43 points in just 38 games is already a career high. He's cleared his previous career high by 6 points, and we're not even halfway through the season, which is just insane. I'm really not even sure where this explosion from Josh Morrissey has came from. It's not like he showed signs of being this kind of point-producing defenseman in years past. He's always been a guy that's, you know, been hovering around 25 to 30 points a year, but now he is legitimately one of the league's best offensive defensemen. The defensive side of his game still leaves a lot to be desired, but when you're putting up these kind of numbers offensively from the blue line, I don't really think anyone expects you to be a stalwart defensively. I feel like the season Morrissey is having is really similar to the breakout season Filip Hronek is having, who we just talked about, just on steroids. Imagine going back in time before the season started and saying to everybody that not even halfway into the season, Josh Morrissey would be scoring at a 92-point pace and having more points than the likes of Cale Makar and Adam Fox. Everyone would have said you were crazy. And now for the final player we're going to talk about in today's video, Brandon Hagel of the Tampa Bay Lightning. I remember when Tampa Bay acquired Hagel at last year's trade deadline, everybody was a little bit confused as to why Tampa Bay gave up as much as they did to acquire him. That package included 2 conditional first-round picks, and I mean, Brandon Hagel was great for Tampa Bay in the playoffs last season, but I do feel like this season especially, he is showing why he's such a valuable player. 15 goals, 15 assists for 30 points in 36 games so far for Brandon Hagel, on pace for career high numbers across the board, scoring at above a 30-goal pace right now. And I feel like with Brandon Hagel, that offense is just kind of a bonus because the dude does so many other things well. He is just a menace to play against. In my opinion, one of the most tenacious forecheckers in the league, can play both special teams and play them well. The kind of player that any coach in the National Hockey League would love to have on their team. And not to mention, Brandon Hagel has a cap hit of just $1.5 million, is signed at that number through next season, and his expiry status is RFA, not UFA. Truly one of the best bargain deals in the league right now. Brandon Hagel is a beast. So that is going to wrap up today's video, going over some NHL players that I feel like deserve more attention for just how good they have been this season. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say, so if there's anybody that I didn't talk about in this video that you feel like is having a really underrated season, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. While you're down there, if you could, please be sure to drop a like on the video. That is the best way to show your support. And like I said at the beginning, if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.